Welcome to the Cybersecurity Matters podcast. Your hosts today are me, Harry Baldwin, and Matt Rose, two members of the Nuco Cyber team, and we're delighted to be joined today by the founder and CEO of Field Effect, Matt Holland. Matt started his career at the Communications Security Establishment, where he spent 7 years in the Tailored Access Operations Group as a leading security researcher specializing in intelligence, tradecraft, and technology for key top secret projects across the Five Eyes community. In 2007, he co-founded Linchpin Labs, growing into a leader within the privatized intelligence industry before its acquisition by L3Harris in 2018. Today, Matt is the founder and CEO of Field Effect, a cybersecurity company helping organizations identify, prioritize, and respond to cyber threats through managed detection and response services and continuous security monitoring. Welcome to the show, Matt. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Yeah, awesome intro. We've got lots of things to dive into. We're going to be covering your career, people, cybersecurity industry. But to get us started, we always love to start with the same first question, which is how did you get into the cybersecurity industry in the first place?
A bit of a weird story. So I was originally lined up to do a PhD and needed a summer job, and I ended up getting a work term at CSE. I had done a work term prior, so I was able to make a phone call and basically see if anything was available. Didn't think anything would line up, and as it turns out, there was a new group starting. TAO, Tailored Access Operations, and they were going to bring a few co-ops in, and I fell in love with the technology pretty quickly, canceled my PhD plans, and said, this is by far the most interesting thing I've ever been exposed to in the realm of computer science because of the challenges. It was clear that it was a world of choose your own adventure based on how ambitious you want to be, and I just said, this is it. Found my calling.
Yeah, I mean it's inspiring stuff, and I'm tempted to steal some of these career questions off Matt, but I know he's got a couple. So thanks very much, and I'll hand over to you, Matt, for career.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Harry. And I think going back to that time at the kind of communication security establishment, I'm keen to understand, what was it that made it so interesting for you to ditch your PhD plans and, jump straight in and what was it that really attracted you at that first point?
Yeah, it was the project that I got to do. I don't think I can talk too much about the specific project, but I'll try to characterize what it was like. So it was a project where it was an open-ended, solve this challenge, and it was my first exposure to operating system internals. I mean, I was prior development. I was a very high-level coder, and I got to really see how any human at that point could actually influence the outcomes on an operating system, regardless of what the security boundaries were. And it was something that I think it was given to me as a let's see what Matt can do and see where he lands. And it ended up being something that played a really key role in the growth of that group and the operations. So, I mean, the challenge was pretty incredible. It aligned with the release of The Matrix as well, which I don't know if you guys remember that movie, but the whole idea breaking rules and safeguards was a theme. And then getting to see how, as an individual, part of an awesome team, I could positively influence the mission of the organization and thus the country.
Would you put that experience down to be one of the most kind of influential experiences in your career? And is there anything else or anyone else across that time that you'd put down as kind of one of the main influences in your career to date?
Yeah, it definitely grabbed me and took me in that direction. I think the most influential aspect of that time period would be the people I got to work with. A lot of us, like, go back in time. This was like early 2000s. The internet wasn't really a thing, and if you were trying to do anything complex, you couldn't just go Google it. You had to do R&D yourself. You had to reverse engineer things. You had to figure things out. And I got to work with a group of people who were genuinely invested in educating each other with everything that we learned, because that knowledge back then was so valuable. So I got to be a part of a team for about a 7-year period that no matter what the task was, we would tackle it together. We were always invested in each other's growth and outcomes, and that formula ultimately showed a giant positive outcome for the organization. And it was something for me that cauterized, like, all right, moving forward for the rest of my career, this is the environment I want to work with. These are the type of people I want to work with. Not a fan of bureaucracy. I'm a fan of getting things done because I've gotten to see how it can be done so simply. And I'd say that theme is what I've carried into being an entrepreneur.
And you've built a career off of solving some very, very complex challenges. Is there any that you look back as you see some of the toughest challenges that you've overcome? And what are some of the lessons that you've brought through from those experiences?
So I think the theme around the hardest challenges has been how do you compete with bigger competition? So in the case of CSE, we were a small company, and as part of the Five Eyes Intel sharing or community, where we had NSA as a big brother, and we were doing things. In there was a measure of competition against them, but working together, but also trying to stand out in that world. And then going over to Linchpin, my competitors turned out to be multi-billion-dollar companies like Lockheed Martin, British Aerospace. How do you find success against those giant machines? And then today, at Field Effect, we're 165 people, by far the lowest funded company in the cybersecurity space. Like, all of my competitors are multi-billion-dollar companies, multi-trillion-dollar companies, and we're able to carve out success in that. So I would say, generally speaking, that has been the biggest challenge as a theme in my career, is to how do you compete? How do you create a unique value, even though you're up against marketing budgets that are 50 times the size of my entire revenue line, right? Like, they're huge. And I think the lessons learned in the process of doing that is you always need to have a laser focus on who the customer is and what value you're bringing. It's very easy to go pie in the sky. I have a technical idea and I want to build out an engine, and there could be several derivative products that you could do from that. But you have to keep a laser focus on what the value is that you're bringing to your customers and partners. Always come back to that. Even after a release of a product, come back to that. That is such a key thing, and it's so easy to get wrong. I've seen incorrect summaries based on, well, this is the feedback that we got, and this is what perhaps we need to do, when in reality it's a incorrectly derived interpretation of what a customer is saying. And I think the art in really connecting the dots between what somebody is asking for, what value you're bringing the customer, and how you implement that is it is non-trivial, and it's very easy to get wrong. And I would over-index in that space if I were an entrepreneur.
It's interesting because we're seeing so many disruptive vendors in the space, disruptive MSPs, that are having to kind of overcome that as well, particularly in the kind of highly competitive market. I know when you co-founded Linchpin, and grew it to a leader in the intelligence kind of industry. Were you aware of the opportunity that you had in front of you? Did that vision change for the business? How did because I'd say one of the strengths of a lot of these disruptors is the fact that they're agile and they can pivot very quickly. I'm keen to kind of hear a little bit more about kind of how that journey aligned with that initial vision that you had for the company.
Yeah. So we definitely had an inside awareness as to what products would align with that customer base, and I think ultimately that's why over the entire history of the company we did not have sales or marketing. It was my business partner and I, pounding doors, giving presentations, because we just didn't need to run that through a translation process. We had an advantage there. I actually think it was my business partner who was much better at deriving good products. I was so what I described in my previous answer, I didn't start there. I started as the let's build the engine or build the foundations, and we'll be able to build 90 different products from that. But the reality is, if you don't have that end goal in mind, you're just going to build forever and not bring something to market. And he was very, very good at saying, we could perhaps skip these steps and get something to market there. So it was definitely a dance of our two approaches, and I think we both taught each other a lot along the way. Yeah, I think the agility piece was definitely something that was very important. I know at several points there was a really hard problem, a particular challenge on iOS, something we needed to do on iOS because it was a very hardened operating system. I mean, we literally got a bunch of guys in a room, fed them beer and pizza, and said, we're not leaving until we solve this. And, we got a solution out of that pretty quickly because of the laser focus. And we were able to do that just on a whim and say, okay, we're going to do this. We're not going to go have a bunch of meetings to figure out we're going to redirect a bunch of resources. It was just like, F it, we're doing it. And there is power in that for sure.
Pizza and beers always help too. So, but to date, kind of, is there an achievement that stands out to you from your career that you are most proud of?
Yeah, and this I ruminate on this a lot. I had the opportunity I mentioned earlier to work with a really amazing group of people in my first job at an intelligence agency. And as I mentioned, we were part of a Five Eyes Intel community, so I got to meet people in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and the US, and it became a spread out community that was beyond the borders of where I lived. When I started my first company, a lot of those people, took the jump to join my first company at Linchpin, and I remember thinking at the time, like, I appreciate you guys. I really I'm thankful that you're willing to make that jump and try privatize world out. And because when you're a first time entrepreneur, you're not polished. Your business plan is sometimes, hey, I have a great idea while on the tube, and you want to take it in a particular direction. And they all made the jump. And then when I sold my first company and started up Field Effect, a lot of those same people came to Field Effect. And I've been able to do a lot in my career, but I think the thing that I'm most proud of is that I've been able to establish credibility and consistency with the same group of people for the past 25 years, and they've been willing to stick with me through all of this. And I think in a world of a lot of hype, social media, a lot of opinions, a lot of influencing, things of substance mean a lot more than perhaps people realize. And for me, that is something I'm really proud of and thankful for, because it's really defined my career.
I couldn't agree more. And you are certainly preaching to the choir. I think community and industry is so important. And to be able to build that and that follow you through your career as well, I think that's a fantastic achievement. And it leads us quite neatly onto our next section of the podcast, which I'm sure Harry would love to ask you some questions about in regards to talent. So I'll hand over, Harry.
Thank you, Matt and Matt. That was fantastic. I mean, the power of team was one theme that I picked out a lot there. You spoke about the value of small, high-performing teams specifically. What do you think the great small teams do differently, and why do you feel that they often outperform sometimes the much larger organizations and bigger groups?
Yeah. Focus on a problem and focus on a solution is it's everything. When I look at historically, if larger organizations are trying to solve or do the things that we're trying to do, or at different points in my career, I can just imagine the internal, all right, let's have a meeting, let's talk about it, let's do this, plan it out, and what's the long horizon. And there's nothing wrong conceptually with doing those things. but I've seen firsthand how when I've brought the wrong people on board, and that's their instinct, it will kill the pace of a company. And it's all down to focus on the problem, focus on the solution, and get it done. And obviously, sometimes that means rolling up your sleeves a little bit more, working longer hours. But I think when you have a small team that is driven towards solving a problem, they naturally will just do whatever it takes to get it done. So, you know, focus and the concepts of agility are obviously very important. Removing barriers. I mean, that's always been something I've I think strive to do. I don't necessarily always do it well, but sometimes I hear about frictions internally that are in the way of things, and mentally I'm flipping a table because I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Let's just fix that. But remove barriers for people who are really focused and work hard. And I mean, it's not a complex formula. It's really not, but it works.
Do you think that there would be challenges if you were to say go and scale to being a 500, 600 person business? Now that might not be your ambition, but do you think that you would still want to try and run it in the same way if you were to get to that milestone, or are you purposefully trying not to get to that specific milestone?
Yeah, I think at this point in my career, I do not subscribe to the assumption that you need to add more layers.
Yeah,
It's obviously an empowerment challenge, a communication challenge. But I would say as Field Effect goes forward, like everybody is being empowered more and more. Like the things that I see people doing, perhaps 2 years ago would have been a part of a discussion, and now I'm like, no, I know this person's going to deliver, and I know it's going to be great. Let me know when it's done.
yeah,
So I think thematically that is what I would drive. I don't necessarily think I'd perhaps be great at running a 5,000 person business without experiencing the journey to that. Like I see these
yeah,
CEOs that pop from business to business, and I'm like, I don't think I could do that. But interestingly enough, about 7 years ago, when we went to market with our MDR product, somebody asked me like, how many, what was my vision? And I said I wanted to bring really good cybersecurity to small to medium businesses, mid market across the entire planet. Any organization should have access to amazing cybersecurity. And the question they said was like, how many people are you going to need for that? And I said, probably no more than 500. And I got laughed at so hard. But at this point, I stand by that number. I don't think we need more than 500 people.
yeah. And I love the way that you talk about how the team works together and supports each other. And I can see that you as an incredibly together organization, which is, yes, it's really fantastic to listen to be honest with you.
Oh, thanks.
I think you spoke a little bit about building companies up from scratch. When you're looking at those first initial hires, what soft skills? Because I'd imagine that some of the hard skills, of course, you've got to have an understanding of the space, and if it's a more technical role, be able to be hands-on. But I'd imagine that you look for some very key soft skills. What would you say those are? What are most important to you?
I mean, this might be an obvious one, but like work ethic is pretty important. I know my first few hires, I'd worked, insane 12 to 16 hour days for years with these people, and I knew that's what I was going to get out of them. I think mission focused is underrated. I know that in large organizations, the concept of bringing on junior people and teaching them the culture and building internally is the driver to growth. And I don't think anything's wrong with that. I don't think that necessarily works with an early stage company. Being able to pull people from the intelligence space. I didn't need to drive home culture. I didn't need to drive home the importance of mission and achieving our goals when we set timelines. It was like looking in the mirror and just understanding what needs to be done. So I think regardless of what business is being built, those are the key things. Obviously, the ability to work together and all these types of things should be obvious. But I think like mission driven work ethic, people who are going to take a founder mindset out of the gates, they're absolutely key.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And we need to definitely move on to our industry topic that matters. And we've got some questions on field effects, SMBs, mid-market security, and of course, everyone's favorite two-letter word, AI. So we'll need to cover those areas. You spoke a little bit about field effect, and you've spoken lots about mission. Tell us a little bit about why you founded Field Effect and what the problem is that you're solving, particularly for customers.
Yeah, so Field Effect is a company that delivers what's called managed detection and response, which is a combination of delivering technology and providing people to operate that technology to protect companies. It's very, very similar to physical security systems, where you bring in a company that installs like cameras and glass breaks and motion sensors, and then they provide a team of people to monitor it. Um, Now, when we started the company, I didn't have any clue that it would be called MDR, but we wanted to focus on solving cybersecurity for small to medium businesses because, having been in the space for, at that time, about 12 years, I realized that, not everybody, and it's obvious today, but not everybody's going to be able to hire the security people needed to protect an organization. So what the market really needed was a company that could bring, enterprise grade security to market, the people to drive it, and it had to be affordable. And that, when you look at those three things, they don't necessarily align when it comes to how you operate a company like that. So we started early on building technology, and we stayed in stealth for a very, very long time. And then when we came to market with it, we were in a position to actually bring a solution. And that's a really key word, not just I'm going to add another layer into the cybersecurity world. I want to bring a solution to market that any small to medium businesses can take on, create a true partnership with us, and solve that problem for them. So it's a really solution focused mindset, as opposed to I want to build something that I can make a lot of money at, eventually sell my company to a giant cybersecurity company, and then right off into the sunset. We always knew it was going to be a long arc for us to achieve our mission, but we felt and we still feel that is the only way to solve it.
Why SMB and mid-market over large enterprise? Because lots of businesses all scrap over the very large enterprise customers. What's made you decide to look at that layer, the SMB and mid-market side?
I think two things. One is it was at the time clearly, and still is, the most neglected aspect of it. It's easier to build something out and sell it to an enterprise, and they have a massive budget. People don't understand how hard it is to bring something as good or better than an enterprise solution and make it affordable to a small to medium business. It's insanely hard, which leads me into my second desire or thing that attracted me to it. Insanely hard problem.
Yeah.
It is bonkers difficult to do that, because it is a combination of obviously technological development that is much more complex than people realize, coupled with a really strong partner and customer experience, and then you got to make it all affordable. Like, it is insanely difficult, and the amount of iterative internal review that we've been doing for years to identifying pain points, inefficiencies, where we're not doing well, where we need to improve, meanwhile trying to chase new opportunities, it's an insane amount of hard work, that once you get there, it's incredibly rewarding, but wow, is it a hard problem.
Yeah. What's the awareness for SMBs and mid-markets been like from a security perspective, like since you started out Field Effect? Because it feels like, even over the last couple of years, SMBs and mid-market organizations are becoming more aware of the need for cybersecurity. But how have you seen that kind of awareness and perception increased and changed since you started?
Yeah, when we started, it was definitely a different sales case. Um, we were, I think, largely going to market when ransomware started to kick on a little bit more. Prior to that, the assumption that I could just install antivirus and it would be fine, because that's the problem space that I, as a small business owner, am aware of. That's an easy solution. I can just go to Norton.com or whatever they're called now, Symantec, I guess, and then install an AV and I'd be fine. So that was the starting point. And then when ransomware kicked in as a more pervasive threat, I think it definitely changed the conversation. And then over the past decade, the fact that so many businesses of different scales can get hit has definitely raised the profile on the importance of cybersecurity and why nobody is immune. I mean, that I'm thankful is starting to go away. That the assumption that you're too small to be a target for an attacker.
Why do you think that SMBs, and because we've seen an increase in definitely attacks to SMBs and mid-market organizations, why is it just because of the fact of a lower level of cybersecurity like measures for these businesses, or do you think there's something else behind that increase of attacks to those kind of businesses?
I would say it's twofold. One would be the natural security posture of a small business is just not that of an enterprise. So from a targeting perspective, they are definitely an easier target. Thankfully, it's not a lot of work to go from being a really easy target to a hard target. But I think the starting point and the awareness of a smaller or medium business is just, there's that gap. And, it makes sense because when you're an entrepreneur or a smaller company, like you're not exactly swimming in crazy profit margins, right? You're trying to build a business, and what really matters is whether your company makes money or not. So it's hard to have that cybersecurity distraction when you're, making payroll and just wanting to grow your company. And then on the other side, I think the quality of attackers has just changed. Like we've seen the evolution from, somebody wearing pajamas in a basement because they were bored 10 years ago to fully industrialized or industrial scale malware ransomware campaigns that they can do, leverage a lot of automation for, and obviously AI just takes that to a new level of I press a button and I walk away and get coffee and I come back and I've ransomwared 5 new networks. Like it's crazy how that is truly in some countries a well-respected and endorsed industry. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. If you're an SMB and mid-market organization, and you're not allowed to say field effect to this answer, if you're an SMB or mid-market organization and you were going to prioritize a singular security technology, what
Yeah.
would you suggest?
Can I say MDR?
That's okay. That's allowed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. MDR. And the reason for that is the concept of MDR is a combination of technology and security as a service. And you ultimately need both. And obviously people training as well. Can't forget that. Good cybersecurity is people, processes, and technology. Like you can't get around those things. And MDR is, I would say, the most accessible and appropriate product for a small medium business.
Yeah. No, interesting. And we have to talk about the
But
AI.
field effect's the best.
Yeah, cool. You got that in. We'll clip that. Don't worry. That will be clipped. But no, I mean, look, we can definitely get into some other areas, but we need to definitely talk about AI. Let's talk about hype, because I've seen you've been talking about AI and it, having a lot of, everyone knows it's got a big hype nation to it. You just have to walk around RSA or any of the conferences. Do you feel like AI is actually making organizations more secure, or do you think it's actually uplifting the impact of people's products and services, or do you think it is just a bit of a hype train?
I would say right now, AI is not broadly making organizations more secure. I think it is quite the opposite, which I can dive into a second if we want to go there. But I think AI does offer every software company, or every company for that matter, the ability to level up their product and level up their customer experience and what that looks like. And I think that is broadly happening. I tend to be very skeptical of companies that, to be clear, we have been using AI in different forms for an extremely long time, long before people talked about it. Back when everybody was focused on machine learning, we were using it. We have used it. We use it at different layers in our entire system. So we have seen the tangible benefits of these things. But I think there's lots of companies out there that did not design the system using AI or with the ability to mesh it in at different layers. And this is kind of why owning your entire tech stack is so important in the security space. I see a lot of companies that say their messaging is now powered by AI, and being a software engineer for 2.5 decades, my skepticism comes out that, did you design and build a system that is powered by AI, or did you just throw an LLM on top of, the system, which means you still inherit all the drawbacks of what you built prior. You just have a layer of automation to kind of hide those things from customers. So that's generally where my skepticism comes from. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have talked a lot about AI's impact on, we're seeing loads of AI SOC companies, for example. AI's impact on the security operations, detection and response, MDR market, has been one that's quite a lot spoken about, mainly due to, automating alerts and triaging incidents and some of those things there. How has AI, do you think, changed the way that businesses, and maybe you guys particularly, deliver MDR over the last couple of years?
For us, it has played a role, but played an informed role. Like our entire platform combines people, automation, traditional analytics, AI where it makes sense. I think broadly speaking, AI SOC companies, I obviously am not on the inside of every AI SOC company, so I don't know how they operate on an individual basis, but I can tell you I've seen a lot of decks of AI SOC companies out looking for acquisition or investment, and I look at the performance numbers. They don't meet our performance numbers. So again, back to that skepticism, like I think it's a lot of marketing noise. I've no doubt that agentic AI will get to the point where it is very difference making for a SOC. But I think what people don't take into consideration is the cost of delivery. So if you were to throw, an insane amount of money and an insane amount of compute at security operations, I'm sure you could get an outcome very close to what we're doing. But I would also hazard a guess that the cost of that would make it prohibitive for most companies out there. Like I think Mythos is a really good example where there was a lot of hype and concern about it, but it was insanely expensive to operate and run, and it still turned out a 30% false positive rate. Is that holistically beneficial to the entire industry? I don't think so right now. Is that concept going to be more additive and helpful into the future? Yeah, but it's always a tight dance between what is the outcome, what is the experience, and what is the cost. And it's very easy to market around the outcome, the experience. People kind of wave their hand over. Don't worry because the outcome is so great. The experience. Why do you need people? Well, people still like to talk to people when things go wrong, and then never mind about the cost because that's never something you market, but it is the biggest driver in regards to whether you're a long-term going concern in the industry or not.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, and I think the final question that I had in this section, you kind of alluded to it there about people wanting to work with people. What do you think is something that AI still struggles with or won't replace when it comes to security operations specifically?
The world of cybersecurity is insanely unpredictable. AI is very good at responding based on how it's been trained. So the training set is always the limiting factor as to how well AI is going to respond. And in our experience, you never know what's going to come month to month, and it's the ability to contextualize, communicate, connect with a business or a partner when something isn't going well, and being able to extend beyond the bounds of what the customer or partner expects in the process of solving a problem or getting out of helping them get out of a bad situation. I don't know if you've ever used customer service, like on a website, and it's clearly AI driven, how long does it take you to be like, no, this is terrible?
I think I
Start you on
honestly,
a strike.
I actually, whenever I see it, I avoid it instantly. I
Yeah,
still go, I still go straight to the phone number and wanting to speak to someone,
yeah.
and get frustrated very, very quickly.
Yeah. So in the security context, our job is trying to prevent the bad from happening, but it's inevitable that sometimes bad does happen. And how you perform when the bad things happen is what really makes a difference. It builds that trust and that partnership and that relationship and that, for a customer. So I don't think AI will be good at that anytime soon.
Because it's going to happen, right? You are going to get breached, and it is about how you respond, and that's often what lives with the organizations, and that's what they often get scrutinized against, is their response to the breach. And yeah, people can really help with that. So I totally see where you're coming from. I mean, we've got to move on to our final question. I'm really interested to hear your answer to this one. It's always the same. What one piece of advice would you give to someone entering the industry?
Uh, Try to join an organization where there are a team of experts that are willing to put in time to help you grow. I think the technical skills are largely being commoditized by AI. Fast forward 10 years from now, I mean, you're going to be an orchestrator like that when it comes to um, the technical aspect of cybersecurity. But I think the wisdom that really experienced people have is what the difference maker is. So if I were leaving school or getting into school right now, I'd try to find a company with some really good experts that are willing to teach me everything they know, really positive environment, very similar to what I experienced actually when I started at CSE. It's the type of thing that you can't program experience into AI in the same way that humans interpret it and pass that on. So technical skills I wouldn't worry about as much versus find a team of experts that are willing to help you grow and follow them around and pick their brain.
Yeah, and if you ever want to solve a problem, lock yourself in a room with some pizza and beer, and it's going to be it's gonna get done. That sounds brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us, Matt. Honestly, it was a
Thank you.
real pleasure getting an insight into your career. So and what's next. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.